Welcome to January 2025. This is our Kentucky K-12 CIO and EdTech Leaders webcast that we have monthly for all those that are new on our staff and our vendor partners and our districts. So we do this once a month. And we typically give some overall things going on at the state, try to learn some things going on at the district level along with this. I've sent you yesterday and even last week some information about the agenda. Our focus today will primarily be on the implementation of our internet content management system, and we have our teammates from GoGuardian here. They'll introduce themselves a little bit and introduce the product. We also have Jody Rose, who will play a prominent role today. Normally, our distinguished Region 1 KE is also playing the role of product manager for this initiative. I'll be the executive sponsor, and Jennifer Devine is the project manager. But there's a whole lot of other folks that got to make that work, including with our GoGuardian team and our districts, obviously playing a big role in that. Then we were going to go into a closed session that will just be for our district EdTech leaders and our OET staff. We're going to focus in on cybersecurity. Obviously, we don't want that broadcast out in the KD Media portal. Because we have folks beyond K-12 that we don't know what their intentions are, good or bad. We know that we have our educational cooperatives watching that, and we know we have other partners watching it, but we don't know who else beyond them watches it. So we're just going to do it in-house and talk about some cybersecurity incidents. One that impacted Kentucky last week that was not related to PowerSchool, and then one that's related to PowerSchool. So we'll be talking about those two topics in our closed session about what are the lessons learned and words of wisdom that we can take from all those, from K, the agency, to all the districts across our state. So we'll let you know, make sure you understand when we're going to closed session. And we'll talk about any other topics that our OET staff would like to bring up. I'll give a chance for that as well. Any kind of pressing that you think you want to mention on here, but primarily those will be our two topics for today. So let's first of all start with the implementation of our internet content management system. As you've heard, and I sent something out a while back about our implementation has to occur no later than 1 July of 2025. But I want to go and give you some background and I think some important context. It's just not the internet content management system itself that goes back all the way back to 1995. And I'm going to share something, and this comes up quite often on this topic. So I'm assuming you can see the
we can see it, David.
Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is this OET website. We spent a lot of time on this the last webcast. And so as much as possible, I'm going to point to the resources on here. So what we want you to know has a key component on there called Governance, Rules, Regulations, and Laws for Kentucky K-12 EdTech. Obviously, this links to our Master Plan for Education Technology. And as we slide down that, you can see all the standards that have laws and regs and policies behind them. And then we come up with this one that was passed in 1998. Now, when we did this in 1998, we'd obviously, maybe it's not so obvious to folks not been around, we had been working on it years beforehand. When Kentucky became the first state to have internet access to every district and every classroom, we started that in 1995. The general public, the legislature, and just anyone else was interested in the protection of students from certain kind of materials that are out on the internet. So if you take a look at one of the links we have on there, the implementation of that 1998 law. We'll scroll up it first of all. It'll give you the details, and folks say, oh, this must be all outdated. 99.9% of this is still relevant today. The wording in it is still relevant. So just because something was passed or written many years ago doesn't mean it's still not relevant. I know our telecommuting guidelines that we wrote back many years ago was very relevant during COVID. So this gives anyone the background of the law, which was in the teaching point here, it was just not the internet content management itself. It was much more than that. And that's probably the teaching point, one of the main teaching points for today. Um, as we had the fundamental principle in 1995 to today, and we call this not necessarily acceptable use, but responsible use policies, this is the bedrock of everything. You really want to make sure folks understand the basics, the code of conducts for students and for adults, even without technology. And I always say a lot of things in the non-technology world apply to the technology world. How do you handle it in the non-technology world? And districts already had in 1995 codes of conduct for their staff, their adults, as well as for their students. So that's a fundamental principle. You got to make sure that folks understand that what is acceptable use and unacceptable use of these technologies and behavior. And a lot of it has, like I say, goes back to the already written documents that you had, but by law, when this law was passed, it spent a lot of time and energy, as it should, in 1995 and 1998, as it should in 2025. So we will remind folks, and this is always important as we go through the implementation, of the basics of law that are behind this, because we get questions from districts about, well, what's the law and regulation? It's not you all, it's your students and it's your adults who don't understand this. And they say, well, KD, stop blocking X, Y, and Z, and not understanding the agency doesn't block anything. It's the district choice 100% on what to block and not block. And so we circle them always back to the district to have that discussion. We came up with standards once we went past and spent a lot of time in acceptable use policies. I'm going to show you a little bit more on that. We talked about the technology itself that we expected in place. Now, keep in mind, in 1995 and 97, 98, the filtering and content management technologies were very crude compared to what they are today. They weren't sophisticated at all. You blocked one thing, you blocked it for everybody within the organization. There was no blocking certain content for certain grade levels, even certain individuals, or turning it off for certain individuals and make it available for others. It didn't have that capability. And they were pretty easily defeated. I always would say during that time, anyone with the termination opportunity, time, and termination and skill could defeat any of those filtering technologies. And still stands true for a lot of things today. If you have someone skill, opportunity, time, termination, they can defeat them. So it circles you back to what's the appropriate behaviors that someone should have. But it had things about, you had to have the ability to filter certain sites, had to have the ability to track, which I would say in 1995 and 98 is still applicable today. One of the best deterrents of behavior is not blocking sites, but people knowing where they went, specific steps along the way can be tracked, so they can't say, oh, I accidentally went there, because I would hear that early on. Oh, we accidentally landed on this site, and you can see through their steps. It was no accident. It was no accident. The steps that got them there and the time they spent there. They just didn't, what I would call, accidentally bump into it. They sat down and set camp there for quite a bit and going through it. So that made that spent some time on that one in the law and the reg that still applies today. Obviously, there's some time frames. If a new school comes online, they have to be on there pretty quickly. Keep in mind, we implemented this in 98. We had to give a certain amount of time for districts to be in place. We did give the option. Now, keep in mind, in our earliest implementation of this in 1998, we used the Microsoft proxy product, and compared to the sophisticated products that we've been using up to now, and then including GoGuardian, it didn't have a lot of functionality. What is probably the best things it did, it cached information. So if you went to a place on the internet, it cached it locally versus your students and teachers having to go out all the way out that source on the internet. But it had the ability to add certain sites that you want to block. So it was very unsophisticated, but the legislature did not fund that for us, even though there was a law that was required to put in place. We got zero funding for it. It wasn't until several years later that we actually got funding to expand the Kentucky Education Network. KEN, as we call it, is the Kentucky K-12 Internet Service. That we got a little bit more money that we could actually go out for bid to get a much more sophisticated product, which we replaced at that time the Microsoft proxy with Lightspeed during that time. But we also gave, even though the state is to provide a statewide solution, districts have the option, and it's this specific one for only this reg. There's certain things where we have a product standard, for example, Infinite Campus, our school information system, financial management system, high-speed network. There's some other things. When we pick a product standard, it has to be the product standard. This one was specifically written to give the choice to districts, because keep in mind, in 1998, we had Microsoft Proxy and no funding. And so I knew I really couldn't, force every district or require every district to use it, because it wasn't a very sophisticated product, even though we had a very high percentage of districts that did just that. And that applies through today is if you take a look at what we have currently installed in Kentucky, there are only 4 districts that don't have Lightspeed installed of the 171 school districts. We also use Lightspeed currently in the agency and Kentucky School of Deaf and Blind. And all of our area technology centers, our 50 area technology centers, also are part of whatever the district's putting in place. So it's not a requirement of 100%, but it definitely is a goal to have 100% using the product standard for this. And I know that's a goal of GoGuardian, but it does remain that we had 4 districts not using the product, using something else besides Lightspeed, and so they can continue to do that. The difference is they have to pay for it 100% on their own. So if you choose something other than GoGuardian going forward, and obviously we're in a transition period from one provider of Lightspeed to another one, and we always paid for the Lightspeed up to July of 2025. But after 1 July of 2025, the only product that we'd be paying for statewide will be the GoGuardian admin product. And then if district wants something beyond that, that's something they have to pay for 100% themselves. All right. So the email part was the last one that we put in there. You can only use the product standard for that one. And obviously we allowed the Google part. And the key part, the reason we had that in the law, was the ability to track and inspect what's going on. The same thing what happens with the Internet Content Management System. It has the ability just not to block, but has the ability to track and inspect on what's going on. And so that is one of the major tenets of it. Now, if you click down and within that you'll say keys to how to use set up and accept use policy. We go in depth of talking about other things like our digital 9 elements being a good digital citizen. Which is important. That's another guideline to use. You go kind of forward and setting it up, and kind of the things that you just should keep in mind when you're setting up your acceptable use policies. But I want to just give you the history. That's the history and basis of it before we start with the implementation of the product itself. So Jody, I'm gonna let you take over the the implementation part of it as our product manager to kind of go through that.
No, I appreciate it, David. And yeah, I'll take a few minutes here and we'll see if we can get any gremlins worked out there on that end. Some of the points that we had some bullet points for CIO meetings that several of our team members talked to many CIOs about last Friday. I'll cover a few of those as well. For those that aren't aware, I think David covered this in an initial note. This was a 6-year contract that was awarded. It's got 4 optional renewals with that, but a key thing that we want to mention, and I think most people know this, is this contract is for the GoGuardian admin product. There are other products that many of you have and we'll hear about, Teacher and Beacon, and we know several people use that. In fact, I think one of our first poll questions, if Marty can throw that up there, was just kind of asking for folks, how many folks that are attending this webcast today are current customers of GoGuardian, or maybe you're not, but you've looked into their products before. I know that, our initial data kind of shows that we think about 20 districts or so use the admin product, maybe up to 50 or so use the teacher product, and some others use Beacon. And some of that data, if you're wondering, like, why are we not exact? Like, they collect some of that. Some districts do school-based purchases and some do district level purchases. And so, but that gives us an idea. And I think our poll question will kind of show us too, that if you get a chance to respond to that. This is the interaction portion of the webcast. So I trust that if you're a school district watching, that you do respond to that poll question. So so play along here as we get through the interactive portion here. But
yeah, and Jody,
go ahead, Mark.
Jody, we've launched the poll, and looks like just a reminder in that top ribbon. If you're not seeing the poll, go ahead and tap that polls button, and the poll should pop up on your screen. Just a quick reminder to interact. We have about 50 folks who've already done that, and we'll keep watching those responses as they come in.
Good. So yeah, I'll mention, Guardian will probably touch on this as well. I mean, we did manage to negotiate as part of that contract a discount for the teacher and beacon modules districts could purchase off of that state contract. And we've got a lot of details to get worked out with things like that, as well as technical configuration issues. But just for everybody's information, the admin product is the focus of this project, and those other pieces, if that's something you want to work with them on, that'll be something that you're able to do, of course. David touched on it. I want to make sure everybody clearly understands the meetings that I've been involved with. I know OET and our staff and leadership understand. GoGuardian clearly understands that we're under a bit of a time crunch here. We've got till June 30th to get this product implemented. And so I know there's times where, we start big projects and we say, give us patience. And so if I beg for your patience, I commit to you that I really just need weeks of patience and not months of patience. We recognize that we've got to get this implemented in school districts in a timely fashion. And so, so along those lines, one of the things that I'll apologize now because there'll be a lot of information probably coming to you quickly in the weeks ahead. But one of the things that you're going to see very soon this week is the plan. GoGuardian had been working on an initial feedback form that they typically send to any of their pending customers. We worked with them to maybe make some edits to that, get some things in there that we want to capture as well, such as, and this probably leads into the second poll question, it's generally an intent to implement. David touched on the fact that we've got a few folks that have wavered out of the existing solution, and we know with any implementation we've put in over the years that we've done this, we've got some folks that waver out for various reasons. So maybe they're under existing contract and things like that. Is our second question the one about the intent to implement? I think it is, Marty. If we've got a second poll question about the intent to implement, this will be something that shows up as well on a feedback form that we'll be sending out very soon to our field staff. If you answer this question, we're not committing you to this answer as of today, but I will go ahead and point out there will be a time that we will have to ask districts to commit to that answer, because if you've been a regular attendee of webcasts and you sort of know some of what we've dealt with over the years, we've asked for funding increases and we haven't received them in our shared services model. We tend to increase those services increase in costs, and yet our budget has not increased. And so you've seen where it's forcing us to make some difficult decisions at times. And so one of the things that our leadership wanted to ensure as part of this contract is that we have the ability to purchase this service for folks that intend to use it. So for those districts that wave out for whatever reason, and we know it's a small number, but we know it's a non-zero number, for those districts, the intent is we would not, at least for this first year, purchase that service. It's fiscally irresponsible to be buying services for people that aren't going to use those. And so there's some processes we got to get worked out on how we're going to capture that maybe from year to year. But we're going to want to know at some point soon, do you intend to implement this solution, or do you intend to waive out? And so that'll be one of the things that you see in a feedback form from us soon. The other thing that we are going to ask, and I think this probably leads into the third poll question for folks that are responding to those polls. If you do intend to implement, we're going to generally want to try to capture like how anxious you are to implement, right? So I think one of the poll questions that we had asked the question about, are you ready to go as soon as possible? Do you want to wait until after testing's completed? Do you really not have a preference as long as you're done? And again, I'm not going to hold districts to that answer, because we know that there's factors with OET staff, there's factors with GoGuardian's implementation staff as far as how quickly we can all move. But we're going to have to pretty quickly get an idea of, if you think of us sorting districts into buckets, which ones are really anxious to go as soon as possible and which ones really would like to wait. And then we'll do our best to accommodate that, of course. So we're going to get that information as part of this feedback form. There's some things that GoGuardian typically ask their customers as well. And they're going to capture this number of devices and operating systems, things like that. So again, the plan, if we can get that form finalized, we're working with GoGuardian on that. I suspect that form will go out very soon this week, if not maybe tomorrow is my hope. And try to get that back from districts by, let's say, January 31st, quick turnaround on that, just to try to get just some basic questions answered so that we kind of have an idea of how to attack things as far as follow-up conversations.
And Jody,
go ahead.
So,
readjusting to avoid the echo there. Marty, you're muted if you're.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Hey, Jody. I know you can't
Yep.
see the polls right now.
Yep.
And that's okay. Just wanted to run through the responses that we're getting.
Sure.
Really good participation for us. It's really helpful for us. So 43% of the folks who responded are previous GoGuardian customers. So that's awesome. And that's helpful for us because we can also see the existing customers, how many have already been, customers of the GoGuardian admin tool. And so, Jody, what number is that? What number of districts are we aware of that are already purchasing?
So we know of about 20 districts that were customers of the GoGuardian admin tool. We know of a larger number, approximately 50 or so, upper 40s, depending on district or school level purchases that were customers of the teacher tool, and a small number that had Beacon as well. But we know of about 21 districts that were existing admin tool users. Or at least customers, and they've owned the product. That doesn't, levels of implementation certainly could vary from district to district.
And it appears, we understand that they were using in conjunction like with Lightspeed. So it wasn't, as I mentioned earlier, we had 4 that were not using Lightspeed products. It looks like these districts are using in conjunction with the Lightspeed product.
And Jody,
well, in many cases, you had some folks maybe using GoGuardian Admin for their student Chromebooks, maybe continuing to use Lightspeed for their staff and the app-based installs. Go ahead, Marty. I'm sorry.
Awesome. No, that's great. I think it's a strong point. Question number 2, we were asking just generally, and as you said, it's not tying folks to it, but as David mentioned, obviously we will be covering the costs for GoGuardian Admin district-wide, and if somebody chooses a different product, moving forward, then that's district cost. And so that's a really strong emphasis for us. 92% of folks responding right now, Jody, are planning to transition to GoGuardian Admin as the product choice, as the KED standard statewide. And then the third question, which brings some excitement in, for those planning to implement GoGuardian Admin solution, what best describes the desired timeline? I love how we worded that question. And 21% are as soon as possible. Super excited. 21% of folks are excited about that transition with all the other things we have going on. But then 53% kind of fit in this middle tier of would rather avoid implementing anything until end of course testing complete. So that's where we guessed or assumed a lot of folks will be. And then 26% have no real preference. So there you go, Jody. Those are the poll questions, and I think that's helpful for us. And
I appreciate.
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of giving us some feedback on that. Yeah, the thing with the testing, I'm not shocked by that at all. I mean, and part of it, it makes sense that districts are cautious about that. And my hope would be, depending on, if others implement and maybe it goes smoothly, that might change some people's minds on that. We just know that at some point soon, we're going to have to let GoGuardian work with districts and our staff on timing of when we can implement. So we're just trying to get a gauge of where we think people are. I'll just tell you, I'm seeing the questions all flow through the chat. It feels like my inbox and my phone in the past week or so. A lot of excitement, a lot of questions, and GoGuardian knows this. One of my biggest asks, something we're working on right now, is to really try to come up with a good mechanism to capture these questions. And I appreciate that people are asking those in the chat. I know why people are curious and have questions, and it's whether it's of a financial nature or configuration specifics, and how are we going to get trained, and when's this going to happen? I mean, there's a lot of things that we know have to get resolved. And so my plan, working with them, I don't know if it'll be a Google form or some kind of brief site that we set up. We're going to have a way to capture those so that we can help direct those to the proper people and get some answers there. And I see we're in the chat. We're trying to answer some of those as best we can. I just know that the next few weeks are going to get really, really crazy on our end. We've got technical and project meetings scheduled this week. When I ask for patience, I literally mean, like, give us a couple of weeks to kind of get our bearings beneath us as we make sure that GoGuardian understands kind of how we've done things thus far in Kentucky. I hope everybody understands that as any large project, we do have a balancing act here where we're trying our best to track the things that we need to track, to make sure that all districts are addressed, but also stepping back and allowing GoGuardian to be successful. David used a phrase in a leadership meeting, and it should relate well to most districts. He said, we have purchased a white glove service, and we need to treat this project as if it is a white glove service. And so you've ever purchased white glove service for any desktop deployments, you know what that means. It means that there's a lot of things that you're hands off on and you're trusting your partner to handle. And so that's the attitude that we kind of want to approach with this. I will say from a training perspective, GoGuardian is familiar with our regional model. They've indicated they're open to doing in-person and virtual trainings, and I suspect we'll hear more about that in the time to come soon. David touched briefly on our policy as a department when it comes to blocking and allowing and all that fun stuff, and that's just not something that we typically make decisions on. I would say that our experience has been that when it comes to allowing sites, we've got this white list that you're familiar with. We want to make sure that testing works okay. We want to make sure that you can get to Munis and Infinite Campus and other key services. When it comes to blocking, I mean, my goodness, unless it's known to be sexually explicit or known to be problematic and harmful to the network like malware, that's just not a business that we typically get in. I understand that people have different attitudes on gaming sites and streaming media and things like that, and that's a district call. I think everybody knows that. And so just understand that any kind of default deployment that we may work with GoGuardian on is going to be very, very basic and then covering just the have-tos, if you will. And so in the spirit of stepping back and getting out of the way, I'm going to turn this over at this point, if we can. I mean, John Buchanan joined us. He's the Chief Growth Officer for GoGuardian. We've got a team of people from GoGuardian on here, and they wanted some time today to talk to districts and kind of introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their company and the product. So, John, if you're okay with it, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over at this point.
Great, Jody. Thank you very much. Naisha, ask you to share the presentation. As that comes up on the screen, just a couple of things I'd like to say before we jump right into this. Number one, we are incredibly excited to be here, and we've obviously been humbled to have been selected to support the great state of Kentucky. And as Jody and David and others mentioned, we cannot wait to get started. We've also mentioned a couple of times here in the conversation about some of the districts and the opt-out sort of situation around whether you choose or not and that sort of thing. And I would just want all of you to know on this call, we know we have to earn your trust and the right to get to 100% implementation across the state. And so we are going to work incredibly hard to make sure that we earn that trust and we earn the right to hopefully get to 100% implementation across the state. I'm going to move very, very quickly through just a few slides that sort of give everyone a sense of GoGuardian, our brand, and some of our products to get to why we are here, and that is admin, as well as our training implementation, as well as the team that is going to support you. So bear with me here as we're going to move very quickly in order to get to that particular part. As I mentioned, our agenda here is just going to quickly flow through a brief overview about us and then get into the important part of the conversation today around admin, your team, key milestones, and then get hopefully into a bunch of questions. And it's been wonderful and awesome to see the amazing questions that have already come through here in the chat. Next slide, please, Naisha. I want everybody just to very quickly, so we have a very strong vision and mission, and it's something that all of us inside our company live each and every day. It is why I am here, and that is a world where all learners feel ready and inspired to solve the world's greatest challenges. And we recognize learning is one of society's most significant strengths, and it helps equip us to overcome those challenges in the world today. From a mission standpoint, one of the things that is incredibly important to us, as we go to the next slide, Naisha, is that we want to make sure that we combine the best in learning, science, and technology to drive positive learning outcomes for all students. And that's really the way that we think about building the different products we have within our portfolio. Next slide, please. We have 4 commitments to each and every single one of you, and you see them here. The one that I'm going to highlight is the one at the bottom, and that's our commitment around customer success. And I want everyone to understand that we are completely committed to understanding your needs, prioritizing what it will take to ensure your success in each one of your different districts, and that we are being the absolute best partner that we can to you. Next slide, please. We're not going to go deep into any one of these, but I just wanted to make sure there was a reference point to the fact that GoGuardian is a series of different products, both on the management and safety side, but also on the classroom learning side. And if you have any interest in any of these products outside of the conversation today around admin, certainly reach out to Naisha and the rest of the team. They'll be supporting you and are more than happy to provide any insight that you would like around these products. These products bring to life sort of these 7 different representations of what we want to try to deliver within each of those different products. I won't go into any one of these here, but hopefully it gives just a great representation of what we try to deliver each and every day within that product portfolio. Next slide. One of the beauty of working with GoGuardian is our scale, and something we're very proud of is just the trust that we have been able to build and earn over the years that we have been in market. And this slide just represents the scale and then the many different schools and school districts that we work with each and every day. Obviously, I know that on statewide deals, which is the next slide, it's important to understand, do we understand how to do these? And obviously, as I mentioned, we are incredibly humbled and so appreciative of the opportunity to work with Kentucky. But please understand that we also have worked with other states from an implementation standpoint as well. And so we really understand what it takes to be able to deliver your needs from a statewide standpoint, all the way down to the school districts and then into the schools themselves.
Something onto that with the state levels. Even going back, it was curious when I asked you which ones had statewide deployments. And you mentioned Delaware and North Carolina. If you take a look at the states that are closest to Kentucky and statewide approaches, even going back to the 90s, even though we did much more in the 90s and through today than Delaware and North Carolina, they're the closest states to Kentucky of doing statewide deployments. In fact, those 2 states are moving to use Infinite Campus statewide off another product, just like Kentucky has with the Infinite Campus. And so West Virginia, of course, border state of us, very interested in that, in what them going to this. So I'll be able to talk with them. But it gave me some assurances that you all had done statewide deployments, and obviously, Delaware is much smaller than Kentucky, but North Carolina is much bigger. And so that tells me you guys can do large districts and large states as well as Kentucky. So they gave me a good level of confidence in your ability to do us. Thanks, John.
Thank you, David. And then beyond just the work that we do each and every day with schools, school districts, as well as statewide deals, is we're consistently out in the market identifying important integrations as well as trusted partnerships to make sure that we're bringing the best products each and every day. And this slide just represents some of the partners that we work with to ensure that we're constantly evaluating what are the right things to do and the best things that we can do across our product portfolio. Next slide. And then last but not least, we know how incredibly important it is to understand the importance of data, privacy, as well as the emerging trends around AI and the responsibilities that we all have there. And so this slide just represents our commitment to ensuring that we are constantly, as a brand and as an organization, thinking about the importance of data, privacy, as well as the role that AI can play in helping to support our teachers in the classroom, as well as all the administrators there within the school districts. And so this slide just illustrates some of the key things that we look at and do each and every day. And with that, as I mentioned, I was going to quickly move through those slides just to give everyone a quick overview of the brand and the different products that we have within the portfolio. As I mentioned, if there is any more interest to go deeper in those, please feel free to reach out to Naisha and the rest of the team that you'll see here in a second. But without further ado, Brian, I'm turning it over to you to get into admin. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Larkin. I'm the product manager for GoGuardian Admin, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today, particularly because I did see some Eastern Kentucky comments in the chat, and I do live in Appalachia, so I'm really thrilled to be here speaking with you. So slide, please. Let's talk about GoGuardian Admin and the size of implementations we've supported so far. As John mentioned earlier, across the country, GoGuardian and all of our products support 50 million students. GoGuardian Admin by itself supports 12.7 million students already. That is across 117,000 educators who use GoGuardian Admin to ensure that they're building a safe and secure learning environment that protects students from all the nasty stuff out there on the internet. When surveyed, 91% of educators have indicated that they favor GoGuardian Admin for keeping their students and communities safe. As we know, education is such a local and community-based activity. It's a very personal thing. So slide, please. Now, when we talk about GoGuardian Admin, one of the key principles that we've built into the product over the last few years is trying to make sure that it helps you as an administrator scale. right? We know that oftentimes it's one IT administrator and maybe even hundreds of students. And so we've tried to build a product that helps you accurately and safely protect those students without having to spend a lot of time managing that filter. So to that end, lately we've been investing a huge amount of time and effort into improving the look and workflow of the product, so it's even easier to use and more intuitive to use. But on top of that work, I'm going to touch through 6 kind of main themes here on this slide. Number one, we've greatly enhanced our dynamic content detection abilities in the last few years, making it very, very easy for you to block unwanted distractions automatically and dynamically. So that means it's not just a database-driven system. We also now have a number of smart alerts products that or rather smart alerts features that can be leveraged to dynamically block content, both explicit content as well as internet proxies, which students sometimes use to bypass filtering or attempt to evade detection. On top of that, we also have extensive YouTube controls. YouTube is, in our data, the #2 most commonly used site in K-12 education. And so we provided you extensive YouTube tools so that you can filter and accurately control that website and ensure that students are only getting to those videos that actually are educationally appropriate. To that end, we provide a number of tools that help you protect students from harmful content, whether that's smart alerts that detects explicit content and blocks it or assigns it to an administrator if that's necessary. Number 2, our flagged activity feature, which helps you be notified when students are looking at material that may be questionable but not necessarily explicit, as well as our smart alerts for proxies content, our smart alerts for proxies feature, which will block proxies that allow students to access the internet unfiltered and access, malicious sites as well as pornography. Now, on top of all those wonderful features, we also offer a parent app where parents and guardians can, of course, access all of their students' information and see exactly what the student was up to, what browsing has happened. They can even control the internet when the student is at home and even turn the internet off on the school-issued device during home times, which you as an IT administrator can set up in your individual implementation. On top of that, actually, I just saw a question come in from the chat. Yes, the proxy, smart alerts for proxies is actually, we're about to go GA with that feature here in about 2.5 weeks, I think, something like that. So we're wrapping up a beta right now. It's been very, very successful, Stella. So I'm happy to say that overall customers are, yeah, happy to, Stella. Thrilled to add you to that. All right, so moving forward, yeah, we will definitely still get you added to that. Was there a question? Okay, all right, moving right along. Actionable insights. As I mentioned at the beginning of this slide, we've spent a lot of time with admin trying to make it easy for you to scale your processes and your abilities to handle hundreds of students. And that's why our dashboard is basically built to give you the most important insights around what's happening with my students, what sites aren't being filtered, what sites should be filtered. All that sort of information is packaged up for you and delivered right on the homepage. And then lastly, inside of GoGuardian Admin, we offer extensive customization and flexibility of filtering. You can filter by OUs. You can have custom groups. You can, even have students time out of custom groups. So maybe they're in a custom group for a little bit to get differentiated filtering, and then they drop out to go back into the normal filtering. But all of that can be configured both at an OU level as well as a custom group level. Slide, please. All right. Now, why do our customers choose to use GoGuardian Admin? Well, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we offer comprehensive monitoring with a great dashboard that helps you understand exactly what students are doing and find those students that are either, not paying attention or maybe a website that is bypassing filtering or something that's not working. All of that's contained in our dashboard that makes it really easy to see exactly what is going on in your implementation. Number 2, our product is easy to implement. It's a very efficient implement. It's, as I mentioned earlier, we spent extensive time recently working on our UI and the workflow to make it as simple and as intuitive as possible. On that note, GoGuardian Admin is exceedingly reliable. We have a fantastic and unmatched reliability and uptime across the board, so you can ensure that our services are always available for your students. And then lastly, we do also have superior support. Our support team is absolutely fantastic and consistently gets amazing customer satisfaction ratings. And I'm sure that you are going to be very thrilled with them, should you have to reach out to any of our support team. There we go. So folks, that was just a quick walkthrough. I can, of course, if we have time at the end of this, I can also do a live demo. I know that we're going to get into implementation and all the technical stuff here in the future, but I wanted to throw that out there in case we had a few free minutes at the end of this call. So, and Naisha, over to you, I think.
Yep. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Naisha. I am your customer success manager. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our team that you'll be working with. So first and foremost, we have John Buchanan, our Chief Growth Officer. He's the executive sponsor, and his role is just to ensure that throughout the duration of our partnership with you all, things are running smoothly. He'll be in meetings as needed. Again, I'm Naisha. I'm your customer success manager. So I know a couple of you asked in the chat, who is my point of contact? I'm your main point of contact, and then I will always bring in the necessary individuals as needed in terms of solutions engineers, product team, etc. Stephen Harwood, who's also on the call. Apologize for adding that D there. We'll get that fixed, Stephen. He is the manager of the solutions engineer team. So he's going to oversee the team that will be included in the process of getting you all implemented. You all just met Brian Larkin. He is the product manager for admin, ensuring that it is the best in class tool for you all. And he's also going to be helping to support the BYOD efforts that apply to some districts. Some additional members of our team that you will meet over time. So Eamon Hennedy, he is our solutions engineer that's going to support the implementation process. You'll be scheduling those implementation calls with him. One of the things that will happen that Jody had mentioned is you all will receive that form. And upon filling out that form, we'll be able to get the process rolling of scheduling those meetings. Nate Paul, who is our associate product manager, he'll also be working very closely with Brian to support product updates as well as the BYOD process. We have Jacqueline Grummel. She goes by Jackie. Jackie is our customer education manager, so she will be supporting all the efforts related to customer education and professional services. And then last but not least, Matthew Ortez, who will also be collaborating with me along with his team in terms of any of the additional tools that you all may like to purchase. And just wanted to take a quick moment to do a quick preview of this slide of what we bring to the partnership. So again, as you know, John has mentioned and Brian has mentioned, our goal is to be the best partner that we can possibly be to you all. And so these are some of the ways that we envision that with respect to our strategy, our operating plans, our roles and responsibility, collaboration, and data and insights. So overall, our goal is to be the best partner to you by providing you with what you need in terms of customer service and clarity. All right, and then just going to take a quick moment to jump into key milestones. So this is a kind of really overarching timeline of what to expect. So right now we're in the kickoff and alignment phase. And so during this kickoff and alignment phase, the goal is to gather information from you all. And so with those poll questions that you were answering, that helps to really give us a sense of how to best support you through this implementation process. And as Jody had mentioned, a form will be going out to you all. It will be coming out from KDE, so keep an eye out for that form. And that form is going to collect information on your device landscape and a series of other questions that are important for us to ensure that we are best informed in terms of going into those meetings for implementation. Throughout the time frame of February to May, that will be, you know, ongoing implementation and training that's taking place. I know with the poll, some of you mentioned you are ready to get going right away, and we're super excited about that. There's some of you that want to wait a little bit until after the testing window, and then some that have no preference. We're going to do our very best to meet everyone's preference as it relates to the implementation process. And then by June, just continuing to ensure that you have all the resources and support that you need. Beyond the implementation process, I will continue to be your support person. So at any point, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, and I will always get you connected to the correct personnel. And just some ongoing tasks that will take place during the timeline, collecting feedback from you all, as well as questions. So there will be a form that we'll share to collect questions and to have technical check-ins. And then we'll also be attending KISTI. I love KISTI. I had the opportunity to go back in 2023, so excited to go again. And then the Student Technology Leadership Program Championship. So we're really excited that we'll be able to not only help you, in the virtual setting, but to also be present at these in-person events. And then additional offerings. So again, just want to make it very clear, GoGuardian Admin is what the Kentucky Department of Education is supporting. But as John had from a financial perspective, as John had mentioned, we have some additional tools, and within our suite, with this state deal, there is special pricing for GoGuardian Teacher, which is our classroom management tool, as well as special pricing for Beacon, which is our tool that is meant to help you with monitoring student mental health needs. So again, any questions you may have as it relates to additional tools, please feel free to reach out to me and we can support you accordingly. Customer education and professional services. As it relates to customer education, our goal is to ensure that you feel well equipped to use the tool to its greatest capacity. And so to help support that, we have some modular training courses. We have our Educator Hub, which is a resource that you will be able to use in an asynchronous format. So you'll be able to go in, log in, complete the modules, and that will give you that foundational knowledge, as well as continuous learning opportunities that we have through our website, webinars. We will provide updates on product enhancements and things of that sort. And then in addition to just that ongoing customer education program, we have our professional services. And so a part of this deal, a part of the state deal is that you will have professional services that will be available to you as districts. And earlier it was mentioned, you all have some regional instances in which you engage in professional development. Our team is going to collaborate with KDE to be available to support during those timeframes, as well as the scheduling of individual professional services trainings. And our goal with that is to ensure that you have long-term success with the use of GoGuardian, to empower you so that you are impactful, and just to ensure that you have everything you need in terms of comprehensive solution with our tools. In terms of our professional service offerings, there's different components to it. So we have the technical onboarding component, which each and every one of you will have that technical onboarding experience with our solutions engineer team. We have the product training that will allow you to best understand the features of the tools. Professional development that goes more into the pedagogy. So not just how do the features work, but how do the features work with respect to best practices in the world of education. And then we have the consultation component. All right, and at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over for questions. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back over to David to see how you all want to address the questions component.
Yeah, thank you. I'll ask you all two questions that I asked in our first meeting with you, and I'm not sure I heard them addressed here. We have 80% Chromebooks, and we know a sweet spot for your company is Chromebooks. We also have 12% of our computers that are Windows. We also have 1.6% that are Apple desktops or laptops. Same thing as Windows, desktops and laptops. Most of them are laptops. So probably one of the top questions I have is for you all to discuss your ability just not to do Chromebooks, but to do the Windows and Mac OS platforms as well. Even though those are smaller numbers, those are typically very important people that have them in your district offices and your school offices and a few others spread throughout the district. So please talk about your strength or weaknesses in the Windows and Mac OS environment, since we have a pretty healthy percentage of those with some important folks.
That is
Brian,
a
do you want
great
to take?
topic.
Yeah, do you want to take that one, Brian?
We're actually going to Harwood, I think, is going to take that one for us, John.
Yep, thank you for
Great,
that.
thanks.
So we are definitely excited to say that we support our Windows devices, iOS and macOS devices for GoGuardian admin through the GoGuardian app. It is an easy deployment, and we will partner with you in that process. There are a few things to look out for when we do the deployment, and we'll talk about this when we do the one-on-ones, but we just want to make sure that we test things thoroughly with y'all to ensure that we are being a great partner and setting you all up for success. So David, in response to your question, yes, we do support Windows, macOS, and iOS greatly through the GoGuardian app. That is also why we're bringing in Nate Paul as the Associate Product Manager, because that is one of his key focus areas.
Okay. The second one I talked to you all about, another law that put in place. I talked about the Kentucky law in 1998, but there was also a federal law at the very end of 2000, start 2001, called the Child Internet Protection Act, CIPA. And so it had a lot of the same things that we had in our law that were required. So that wasn't really a big thing for us to do in Kentucky. But CIPA added something in the past 1 or 2 years that original state law and even the original CIPA law did not require really internet filtering beyond the school campus. That was more of a parent responsibility if they were using the parent's internet service from their home, even with a school device. However, that shifted in the past 1 or 2 years, and maybe it's actually 2 or 3 or 4. Lost track a little bit of the time with COVID years, because we definitely had that in place with the COVID environment. So tell me about your ability to not only your ability of your product line when a student takes a product beyond the school campus. Obviously, we know that this kind of product can block, for example, even smartphones, personally owned smartphones on the school campus because it's going through the filtering on our Kentucky K-12 internet service. So, but when they're on beyond the school campus at their home or some other public place with a school issued device, we are assuming that and can discuss your product's ability to still block with school owned devices beyond the school campus.
David, I'm happy to speak to that one. I mentioned this briefly in my presentation earlier. For outside of school campus filtering, we offer what we call at-home mode, which essentially allows you to decide what are the school hours and then differentiate, school hours versus non-school hours. You can also do that by an IP range restriction as well to indicate, hey, these are the IP addresses for the school. Outside of that is non-school. Inside of our product, we allow you to basically identify, here are the policies I want to apply for in-school mode, and here are the policies I want to apply for out-of-school mode. So for example, if you wanted to give students additional, let's say, social media or entertainment access during at-home hours, you can do that, provide that differentiated filtering. Now, in addition to that level of filtering, we also offer our parent app, which gives parents the ability to control the internet access for that device that the student has at home. So for example, let's say that you are at home and you've given the student additional social media time, right, rather than the strict during school hours policy. The parent decides, listen, my student is spending too much time on Twitter or whatever it is. They can then modify that policy through the parent app and even turn off the internet should they wish to stop the student from using the device. Now, again, that only applies during at-home hours, which are configured by you in our user interface.
Good feedback there. And I'm assuming, I saw John Prophet's note, I talked about this, we're assuming your product with a personally owned smartphone that adults, and I really meant to mention this in opening, the law that we put in place in 1998 was just not about the students. It was about the adults as well, appropriately using, school district issued and state issued devices and internet service. So, but when you do use a personally owned smartphone, adult or student, it can block it when they're coming through the school network, the Kentucky K-12 network, to keep them from going there without having to have an agent loaded on the smartphone. Is that correct?
That is correct. We offer DNS level filtering for agentless devices.
Yes. And I saw a slide earlier about the continuous learning. And I think it's important to note the continuous learning is not just for KD, the agency, although we're going to be the first organization in K-12 that implements it. It's kind of drink your own champagne or drink your own dog food that we're asking everybody else to do. So we'll be the first to do that. But the continuous learning applies to all school districts. It's just not KD agency. I saw the slide said KD, but really is maybe KD agency in all school districts. Would that be correct? Like everybody's nodding.
100%. Yeah.
Yes.
Brian, I thought you were going to grab that one. Well, absolutely.
Okay. And I saw some things we'll have to talk to you about with the DNS filters of certain sites that we were, for security reasons, that we were blocking, and porn sites that we were blocking. So we'll work with you on the design of that one. And as you all mentioned, you all have, you mentioned, our chain of command here as far as the product, and obviously you all have that too. And we're going to let you do your thing, but also just with the Kentucky flavor. Lesson learned of the past 10 years, I would say, is we have a statewide implementation, but every district kind of does a little, unique flavor of that implementation. And so you'll have to be in sync with that. Even though statewide, there'll be some standard stuff that we're doing. And I think for all of us, there'll be some broken glass with, for example, I know in the department being the first, as we fine tune the filter itself. We went through that with Lightspeed. We went through that with Proxy. There's a core package that comes out, but there's basic things that are work related that you have the ability to override and even add into your environment. So we'll go through that learning curve as well, being one of the first to do that. And I suspect every organization will go through this fine tuning period of certain things are being blocked, not blocked, and you have to go through that. I just encourage you to get with your leaders, as I have done with our commissioner and our leadership team here, just get them ready for that. In order to honor our time, I said we probably just have you all for an hour. Did anyone see any real key question we need to do here before we go into our closed session? I want to make sure we give that the time, since it really does need the time and energy of the cybersecurity.
Ironically, David, everybody's question they feel is a key question. So now my phone's blowing up behind the scenes, and I guess what I would say is because we do things in such a standardized fashion, a lot of these questions that we get, I feel GoGuardian's prepared to address, but I don't want to have them do that 171 different times. So we're trying to get some conversations built up where they clearly understand how we're implemented in Kentucky. There's technical meetings already scheduled this week. And so I want to provide an avenue for them to give those answers and be able to document those one time for everybody. I will say as well, I've got folks that are concerned, the existing customer base that maybe has purchased product and maybe already owns admin. They're wanting to make sure GoGuardian is going to kind of make things right, so to speak. And so, Naisha, I'll trust that you and the team are going to reach out to those districts that are existing customers, and we'll probably help try to track that and make sure we're talking to each of them. And so I know it's tough in an initial meeting like this on such an important topic for everybody to, when I say please be patient, I know how that comes across at times. And so I would just ask, at least in the very short term, give us a couple of weeks at least to try to corral this, come up with a good feedback mechanism. I'll also say, Brian, and I haven't even mentioned this to David, so I may be putting us all on the spot here. You'd mentioned maybe doing a live demo of admin. If that's something that district would have interest in and you'd be willing to do, there's nothing that stops us from scheduling a separate time where we can come on and do that and have that just be a topic specific event. And if you're open to doing it, I think districts would love to see that too. And I think we can commit to that. So I didn't see anything else that we probably are able to address in the next few minutes. So.
All right. Thanks, Jody.
Stella had a question about a GG hub. Yes, we'll absolutely have a space where you'll be able to access information about the tools as well as like FAQs. So we'll get that up and running for you all.
As I close it out, I'll circle with the closeout is what I began with. What's the state law is we are now in the process of going through the recertification process. At least every 7 years, you got to recertify that you need to keep the law. So we're doing that. However, you can expect later in the year that we will move toward, modernizing it a little bit. Like I said, I feel a very high percentage of that still applies today, but we have words like accept use policy, need to probably change it to responsible use policy. There's a few other things in there that we'll tweak. So you'll see us go forth in this legislative session or just in the next few weeks, not even the session, to just recertify the existing one we have, but later on, we'll modernize it just a little bit. So thanks for everyone that joined us. Thanks for the GoGuardian team. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the educational cooperatives and our other CATS partners that joined us remotely. We're now going to end the open portion of this and go to closed portion. So once again, the GoGuardian team, if you could drop off, appreciate it. And obviously got some questions. We didn't know whether you have questions or not. Got questions, so we'll look forward to you all addressing that. So we'll have everyone drop off, and then we'll stay on for our district and OIT staff to talk about cybersecurity.